What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by special guest Stephen Nesbitt of the Athletic. Stephen, thanks for being here. How's spring training treating you so far?
Spring training is great. I haven't actually gone anywhere. I'm still sitting here at home in the Northeast, opposite side of the country from you, and I've just been on the uniform beat so far, baby. What a life! I'm heading down to Arizona on this coming Sunday, so almost a week away. So that'll be the sort of the return to reality of baseball.
I was going to say, did you ever think you'd be the guy who would be chasing down jersey fabric information and transparent pant transparency lettering size? Did you have that on your resume?
No, and I probably wasn't even the first on my boss's list to be the guy to chase this down, because the day that this first came out, Ken Rosenthal and I were just finishing up a pretty long story on the Pittsburgh Pirates that we'd been working on for a few weeks, and so we were all tied up. And my boss was like, "Listen, everyone's complaining about these pants. We just need someone to or these uniforms. Like, we need someone to put this together. Like, any thoughts?" And I was like, "Ah, I'm too busy, too busy, too busy." And then I thought about it for like 5 minutes. I was like, "Oh, okay, I can do it. If everyone pitches in and helps me get stuff from different spring training sites, I'm happy to try to put this together and call up Fanatics and Nike and figure out what's going on." And it has just gotten more ridiculous from here, Jeff. It started as if you're following along, it was like the couple Cardinals were upset when
Yeah.
they got to, I think it was maybe a day or two before camps really actually opened and pitchers and catchers reported, but they were there and they were, very, I'm trying to remember who was, the Post-Dispatch was there, Derek Gould, and another reporter, I think Jeff Jones maybe was his name. They were talking to Miles Michaelis, and he and whoever was near him complaining loudly about the way these jerseys looked. Mainly the fabric is what Uni Watch, Paul Lucas, who has done Uni Watch for years and years, he calls it kind of like a paper towel fabric. It just doesn't look great. It might be super comfortable
Yeah.
for you and I, but it doesn't look like kind of like the thicker fabric that you'd expect from like a major league jersey. And then there's the design of it, which is the most noticeable part. Is the lettering on the back is really smaller, more spaced out, looks awkward, to be honest. It just
Yeah.
doesn't look very major league. Um, that's the most noticeable design change, and so that's where the complaints started. And that was when we first got word that the Players Association was at least in conversations with Major League Baseball about fixing some of this, and it's the conversation has traveled down to the pants now, and we're just in a weird place now.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's spring training. This is like the perfect MLB spring training storyline, well, let's do this. As I was doing a deep dive this morning on your stuff, you mentioned UniWatch as well, has been great. So 2019, Nike becomes uniform partner. Just this spring, they kind of roll out the Nike Vapor Premium with the stated goal of creating a softer, lighter, and stretchier jersey. It's worth pointing out because people hear Fanatics mentioned Nike designs these, Fanatics manufactures them. They're being made in the same factory that's been manufacturing MLB jerseys for a while. It's also worth pointing out that MLB has tested these out in spring training last year and at the All-Star game. And so let me start with this. Let me start with sort of assuming the best of everybody here. From what you've heard, seen, if Nike's goal was lighter, stretchier, softer, have they at least accomplished that?
I think yes.
Okay.
So the players that I talked to there, it is not a universal distaste for the fabric. It's more of a distaste for the look and the fact that they can't uh, personalize and customize the pants the way they want. We'll get to that. But from just a feel standpoint, it feels good. It's stretchy, and guys say, yeah, maybe in like the summer I'll appreciate this. But to be honest, most guys I talked to are like, I never really got bothered by how, if it was hot, it's hot. What regardless of what you're wearing, like a 100-degree day in St. Louis is going to be hot and steamy. And this isn't going to like make me feel a ton better just because my number is perforated and air can go through. That's not the biggest issue. It's just the sun. It's just the 2:00 game. So it might be nicer. I don't think, like Rob Manfred's his statement. Oh, I realized my dog's in here. Sorry. His first statement was basically like, guys are going to get used to it. And it's like, yeah, they will. They will, but there are a number of things that even fans who aren't putting this jersey on can just eyeball test this and say, like, hold on, something looks bad about this uniform.
Well, and that was one thing I found interesting. People have mentioned the smaller lettering. They've mentioned the fact that patches that used to be embroidered are now ironed on or whatever the correct language is. Which again, the more I read, well, Nike was trying to make a lighter jersey. So what did they do? They took all the heaviest stuff off of the jersey, which was big letters and embroidered patches. But to your point, it's kind of a funny deal because is this what players actually wanted? Do they care about? I also thought it was funny, and I think UniWatch was the one who pointed this out that like a bunch of guys have come out positively and spoken about the jerseys. Basically, all of them are Nike endorsed athletes who are complimenting Nike jerseys, which I found that comical. It's like, well, no, some guys like it, and you're like, oh, all of them are on Nike's payroll.
Yeah, that was I don't want to take credit because I wrote that the first day, and I hope I was the first. I felt like I was the first person to do it. Maybe I wasn't, but that was something when I looked it up when um I don't want to out any people I've talked to. However, the Major League Baseball put out this press release, and I saw these glowing quotes from
Yeah.
Arenado, who I knew was a Nike guy, Rutschman, and Acuna, who I knew was a Nike guy. So I looked it up. Rutschman also, whether or not he has a deal with them, he wears their stuff. So I'm sure he has a deal, but he wears their stuff on the field. And I went back and looked at all the because no one noticed it at the time, but All-Star game last year, there were a number of positive quotes.
Yeah.
And then they from players, and then they came back again when these were unveiled this spring, and more positive quotes. And I looked it up, and I'm like, literally all of these guys are Nike. I can't tell you that they're all making money from Nike, but they wear Nike, and in baseball, that generally means they're making money from them and have an endorsement deal. So it's the skeptic can have a field day with this one.
Yeah, and fair to you. You were right. It's in the stuff that Pope published. I believe it was the article that you published today where you were like, hey, if somebody has found a non-Nike athlete who has spoken positively about this, please email me. And, Jason Hayward is the Dodgers guy who spoke positively. I'm like, okay, there's a positive one. Then I read your article and I'm like, oh yeah, Jason Hayward, Nike guy. So,
and listen, like if I was getting paid by Nike
right.
and it was my job, like, sure, man, it's a comfortable fabric. I can get over the look, whatever.
Yeah.
So, but I might not be the one I hang on the wall in my
Right.
den, right? I might pick the old
Yeah.
Majestic or just like this Nike template that came before it, which from what I understand is the Nike template. And I would love to be able to explain better to you, Jeff, and to the audience, like why some of these changes are, or debunk some things or confirm some things. But the truth is, just as Paul Lucas would tell you of UniWatch, like these sides aren't very communicative.
Yeah.
I've asked a lot of questions and reached out a lot of times to all three parties here, and they don't want to say stuff or don't want to say it on the record. And so it's some of these things are kind of, I guess, in game. The transparency part being a big part of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to get into that.
Yeah, I want just real quick on that because you make a key point, which again, as I've dove deeper and deeper into this, Nike hasn't said anything, Fanatics hasn't said anything. There's sort of these prepackaged statements at best. Like, why wouldn't they just come out and say some of the things? Because there are things. The more I read, and it's like, well, we tried to make a lighter jersey so the lettering's smaller and the patches aren't embroidered. Like, that makes sense. Like, if someone
Sure.
just comes out and says, "Hey, we're trying to make a lighter jersey," so a couple of these things had to go. People might not like it, but I at least think you give a logical explanation. Do you have a best guess as to why nobody is willing to say anything to explain themselves?
No, not really. And to your point, I interviewed Paul Lucas for this latest explainer I did, and he said, it reminds me of when the Indianapolis Colts, their shoulder stripe, kind of the iconic stripe on their shoulder, got shortened, and people are like, why is that? And Nike, who's also does the NFL, explained because we have like a seam that didn't used to be here, so we could no longer have the stripe going past the seam. And he's like, well, I don't like it. It's not the way it was when I kid. But at least I have an explanation
Yeah.
that I can hold on to and go with. And with the baseball ones, what's frustrating is like we just don't have a good example or a good explanation. And so, yeah, I have heard from various people that same explanation about the fabric being lighter, so necessitating smaller letters. You could argue that that's not worth it given the way it looks. And I think players might argue that it's not worth it with the way it looks, but whatever, those conversations can be had at the higher levels. I can't imagine that you can't find a lettering that's light enough to fit, but whatever. I'm not an expert in here. But your question was why we were not hearing more,
Yeah.
basically. I don't know. I've given more than ample opportunity for all these parties to say something, and the only thing I ever got was it was really when things were blowing up on Friday with all like the pant problems with the transparency, people just like grabbing photo day photos and being like, look, you can see his sliding pants, you can see his tags, the like bottom of the tails of the shirt look like a diaper on him, and yeah, all these look really bad. I remember that I saw Cal Raleigh looked pretty rough. Scott Barlow, you could see everything. You could like see his legs basically through his pant, and like the Tigers put out a video, and they every single guy you could see in the studio, like you could see his the tails of his shirt as they're tucked in. So the only thing I got back that day was that the fabric had not changed, and another source said that the material and thickness have not changed. And so I didn't write that night because I asked for Nike for some clarification on exactly what that meant, if that were true, and if that were something they were going to claim. And I never heard back from them. You mentioned they put out a statement that was kind of your generic statement of we put a lot of work into this and we're excited about it, basically. But the questions I had for Nike were, are you telling me this is exactly the same pant as last year? Other than the belt loops are a little bit different, but like everything about the pant. Because it seems like those, to me, as a skeptic here, it seemed like those words were very cherry picked: material and thickness and the fabric. Okay, those specifically. So if I come back with, so they shouldn't be any more sheer than before, can you like confirm that? Can you do tests? Can you give any proof? No response on that sort of inquiry. And also, if this is the same pant, whatever the template for the pant is, when did that get introduced? Is this the same pant they used back in the Majestic days? Because you can go look back at 2018 photo days and see a little bit of the tail too. It looks a little bit more pronounced today, but you could argue that it's always been the same, and the photo lighting setups really exaggerate the look, and when you're on the field, it doesn't show quite as much. That could totally be true, but I don't see why it would be difficult to answer these questions. Yep, the pants are exactly the same. We introduced them when we took over the contract in 2020, and the last part of it to me is, listen, they made a big deal about rolling out a new uniform, new name, all new tech, 90% polyester, like all these words, and then are you telling us you didn't change the pants? It's just the shirt. That's also fine. That's probably I think that's totally fine. Do they just not want to admit that they didn't change the pant? I don't know why that would be something to be embarrassed of or not admit, but those are questions that I put out to Nike and haven't gotten anything back.
All right, well, let's get into the pants. The pants seem to be the biggest issue. It feels like, we started with lots of different complaints about, they feel cheap, they're inconsistent, these types of things. And not to say that those have gone away, but it feels like if people are mad, things have been honed in on the pants. You mentioned that they're not customizable, that there are not enough of them. Teams that are supposed to have 5 pairs per player, some teams don't have any. The Padres played the Dodgers last week wearing old pants because they didn't have new pants. And then, of course, the transparency of them as well. So what can you add to or kind of explain about what you would say is maybe the single biggest complaint about the current jerseys?
The single biggest from the player perspective is the fit of it. And so there was the first thing we heard the first day when the Cardinals players were starting to complain about it. We were hearing guys start to complain about the pants. Angels guys, Dodgers, Tigers, all of them. And their main complaint is they can't get them fully tailored anymore. And now that sounds to the average fan like the most first world 1%er problem. But to make their argument for them, baseball players are wearing their pants every day. You're wearing these pants all the time. And so what they are accustomed to is getting a blank pair of pants in spring training, trying them on with Nike, Majestic, Fanatics. Players are employees who will measure them, measure their the waist, the thigh, the calf, the whatever, the inseam or whatever, I don't know the words, but they'd measure a lot of things, and the player can make requests there. They could say, hey, could we take the thigh out an inch? Could we make it a little bit tighter around the calf? Could I make it looser here? Could I have this type of flare on the bottom? Could I have high socks? Could I have mid socks? I have low socks. And a lot of that is now they would get them a couple weeks later and have plenty of time before opening day to sort of get adjusted to those, because like you said, they have like 5 jerseys. They need a lot of different pairs of pants, and they need to kind of make sure they all work. And so what's happening now is Nike, they're making it seem extremely innovative. Jeff, I don't think it doesn't seem innovative to me. It seems like you're making your job easier, or trying to anyways. They're saying, well, like, we already did all the work. We body scanned 300 guys last spring, lumped them into 4 body type buckets. And so now when we measure a guy, waist and inseam, and we get a body type for him. We say, okay, he fits this C3 or whatever type of body type bucket they have for him. And that the sort of like hip to thigh and calf ratios are kind of already figured out for you. So the player doesn't get to pick that. And so that's player's biggest complaint is like, look, I don't fit into whatever bucket they put me in. And so I tried on these pants and they're not good and they're not going to get specifically tailored for me. And so pitchers, if you've ever seen a pitcher, they tend to have huge quads and big butts, and they want more space in those areas. And some guys like to have them super tight.
I was
Right?
gonna say some guys want less space in those places.
That's actually some want more space, some want less space, but they want it to fit exactly how they like it to fit.
Yeah.
And in this case, you don't. And you look at some of the pictures, you say it's a little bit baggy for certain guys in some areas. There was without giving names, there was an all-star American leaguer who was like, it fits great up here by the waist. It fits too loose down here at the calf, and it fits too tight in the thigh. I'm like, you just can't figure it out. And to this point, they can't customize it any further. And so that's a big deal for guys because they have to wear that every single day.
Well, and it's worth pointing out to the first world problems deal. Like, these guys aren't just walking around in these pants either. I mean, like, what I need to wear pants for is just to like walk around, drive, it's basic things. These guys have to run. These guys are doing it on, they're appearing on national television and all of these things. You think about the money people spend on like a custom suit. It's not crazy to think, hey, I want pants to fit exactly the way I want them to, because I need to be flexible. I need to run. I need to be comfortable, look good, feel good, play good, whatever, that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
I feel that. And I had the same conclusion as you. Rather than customizing everything, Nike just said, we're going to customize by giving you 4 options. Now, this might be a sort of very niche question. Was Nike or Fanatics or whoever the one that would actually do the customizing? Or was this like a clubhouse attendant? Because there have been some stories of clubhouse guys that are maybe going to go in and make some off the record alterations to help people out.
Yeah. So in the past, from my understanding of the situation, is it would go back to Fanatics.
Got it.
And because Fanatics is the manufacturing part of it, I believe mostly these are Fanatics reps being sent out to clubhouses.
Got it.
And so I believe it's Fanatics would do the final tailoring. Although we talked to some clubbies who said it's kind of like an expected part of the job at this point. But is it expected for them to do 5 pairs for every person on the 40-man roster and every coach? I don't think so. They're not even going to have time to do all the cleaning of shoes they have to do, and everything else they have to do. They have a crazy amount of work, and so no, generally not all the work was done by clubbies, but now maybe that is who has to do some of the work to make these the fit the way these guys want it. So yeah, it's a weird situation compounded by the fact that they don't have the pants yet. Almost every team does not have all their pants. I don't actually know that I've heard of a team that has every pant that they're waiting for, because there's some sort of shortage here. And I don't know how much of this was expected. Again, we'd love to have that answered. I don't know if, we're rolling this out and we're going to wait until we get the guy's measurement before we print all his pants, or I have no idea. I'm just speculating at this point because there are teams who don't have any pants, teams that have like 1 pair, and just like a league-wide shortage where these clubhouse managers are pulling out old pants. If you look at a game right now and you're like, I don't see any see-through in that white pant, well, there's a decent chance you're looking at a year-old pant or something older than that. So like there are guys wearing majestic pants. I saw a guy in a Rawlings jersey out there the other day on UniWatch. Don't really know why that would happen, but hey. And listen, it's spring training, so like, who cares if that happens? The question is like, will this all be solved by opening day? That's what players are upset about and frustrated about, because they want a few weeks to try on all these pants and wear them out and get used to them. And there's just no certainty right now that they're going to have that. And so it's silly for us to talk about this for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But it really, like, there's just like Nike, it seems, is particularly to blame here. And they're just like, feels like there was so many better ways to handle this transition than they have.
Well, and that was going to be, one of the last questions I asked. Is this a Nike thing or is it a Fanatics thing? I think when this all came out, everyone was just looking for an opportunity to pile on Fanatics, because everybody who's a baseball fan has probably ordered something from them that didn't come out the way that it was supposed to. And yet, as I dig into this, the people that are actually doing the digging seem to believe that this is almost entirely Nike's fault, because all of the things we are talking about here, whether it be design choices like the lettering, like the patches, like the pants, the decision to only offer 4 pieces of customization, or options for customization, like all of those are Nike. Now, Fanatics, it seems like there's inconsistency, which would be a Fanatics issue, but it feels like, Steven, that the more I read, the more people believe that this is way more of a Nike problem than is Fanatics. Is that fair?
From what I gather, yes. That's also what Tony Clark said. He's like, look, Fanatics was making these jerseys
Yeah.
beforehand, and we weren't having any issue with them. Fanatics also was technically making them prior because they bought out Majestic, the previous
Yeah.
supplier, in 2017. So like they had a technical hand in that. And there's like a very weird through line here where actually this jersey has been like made the same by the
Yeah.
same people for like a long time.
Crazy.
Just has Nike's logo on it. And now it's still made by the same people at the same factory. It's just a new template provided by Nike. And so, yes, I don't own a piece of Fanatics apparel. Didn't mean to not do it, but I don't have complaints. I don't have a dog in this fight.
Yeah.
But every story I've written, like the comment section is overrun with people who just want a moment, a space to to complain about Fanatics.
Yeah.
So hey, listen, whatever you guys need to do is fine. In this case, though, like we have in other sports situations where one company is manufacturing it through another company, and all the decisions involved there are handled by that first company. So Nike in this case, and so it doesn't seem to me that this is a Fanatics problem. However, if you see inconsistency in the spacing of the lettering, if you see loose threads, if you see any of that like poor production quality, I would imagine that's a Fanatics problem. But by and large, these overall issues we're talking about, with the design, with the fit, these seem to be Nike issues, and that's where that's where the MLBPA is sort of taking aim.
Okay. Couple rapid fire things and then kind of how this plays out. The first is there was a story at one point that the colors were being standardized. Some of the colors, like the white, was being standardized across Major League Baseball, which people were mad about because there was sort of a unique, I think, like white that the Dodgers were able to wear that other teams weren't wearing. Is that, I haven't really seen much about that. Was that sort of a myth, or is that actually a thing that's happening?
Not totally clear. I haven't heard about the whites very much. I know they changed the white a little bit to an off white. I'm not sure they standardized it across everybody. Players have complained that like holding up these two whites look different, just of stuff they have in their locker. But one of the initial complaints we had was Dansby Swanson, who is actually a Nike sponsored athlete, was saying like the Cubby blue changed, and we don't like that. So from my understanding, they did sort of transpose all this onto a Nike palette. In a way that wasn't that way before, and I'm guessing they tried to match as perfectly as they could. But some of the colors, certainly have changed at least a little bit.
Okay, and the pants, you touched on this earlier, the transparency. I've seen the one picture dating back to like 2015 of, I think it was the Cardinals or the Reds. I can't remember who, but it's like
Reds,
all the guys in pictures, and you could see through the pants in every single one of them. It sounds like where you've landed, at least, is that this is obviously true. You're not arguing with the picture in front of you, but that the argument is that it has become more pronounced in 2024. Is that fair? Like yes, they have been see-through because of the lighting in years past, but it appears as if they are more see-through now.
Yeah, if I were to like use lawyer speak, I would say it appears more pronounced this year, the see-through effect. However, I find it plausible that the pants could be the exact same as last year. However, if that were the case, I don't know why you wouldn't simply say that. And I've given the opportunity to Nike to say that, and they have not obliged.
Okay, last question. Where does this end? Are we 3 weeks away from everybody forgetting you and I even had this conversation, or do you think this drags on and gets messier?
I don't think it. I hesitate to say it, but I'm going to say I don't think it gets messier from here unless it's truly like. I think the shortages thing is actually the biggest problem.
Yeah.
The players are going to stop whining about the fit because they're going to get used to their pants. Also, I think that's the area where Major League Baseball and MLB and Fanatics are actually going to work to fix things. Maybe that means working overtime with some of the tailoring. So I think that part's going to get figured out. The design parts, I don't think are going away. I don't think they're going to be like, okay, yeah, we messed up. It does look bad. It looks very cheap. There's a JP Crawford, just like search JP Crawford on Twitter, and you'll see there's like a picture of him with a great looking Mariners jersey from last year. It says Crawford all nice and big. And now you see it, it's just like, what? It looks like a child like placed the letters on the back of there. And so I don't think that's going to change. I think it's too late to do wholesale changes on every jersey for something like that. But so I think from that perspective, I don't think it will kind of go away. I think people are going to keep complaining about how bad the back of the jersey looks.
I loved one thing I read about the lettering on the back, that it was like optimized for somebody who had like 6 letters in their last name. And if you have less than 6, like it looks way too small. And if you have more than 6, it's like basically U-shaped to fit it on your. I mean, it just, these are the things that, look, there's people far smarter than me that are in these labs, I would think, but I don't, it feels like um they didn't think a lot of this stuff through, I guess is the bottom line to me. And to your point, like as I'm reading your stuff, I'm like, why don't you just come out and offer some form of explanation? Say it's the same pants. Say this is why we made some of these changes. I don't think it's going to get messier. Like, I think we've already reached the bottom of the pit, it feels like. So at least 20% of people might be satisfied with your explanation. That's 20% less people. But part of me also wonders if Nike and Fanatics have been in this game long enough to say, this is all going to be completely blown over in 2 weeks. So, like, we don't need to fuel the fire. We don't need more articles written. I don't know. But I will say, this is the ultimate spring training story. And I appreciate you, Steven, for digging into this, because people have questions. And, here you are. You're now an expert on inseams and quad widths.
Yeah, I didn't expect to have this, but hey, you're always looking for like what are players passionate about? That usually lead to like good conversations and things that explore. And this is the thing so
Yeah.
far in spring training that players are passionate about.
I love it. Well, you can find Steven's stuff on The Athletic. Again, as we record this, there is a new article up kind of summarizing all of the information, putting it in one place, easy to read format, and even, reference to a Seinfeld episode as well. So unable to track down that interview, unfortunately, but the piece is still
Tried our
worth your
best.
time. So Steven, thanks for hopping on, and good luck in spring training. Hopefully by the time you get to Arizona, you're not just, taking close-ups of jerseys. You're actually talking to people about baseball.
I know. I've got a long list of story ideas, so I hope to chase those instead of chasing, problems with the pants.
I love it. I love it. Well, Steven, thanks. And everybody watching, thank you. As always, this is Dodger Heads presented by DodgerBlue.com. You can subscribe, ring the notification bell here, or check out our podcast, Apple, Spotify, and Google as well. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks. And as always, go Dodgers.